Safe, Secure 360 podcast. There's safety in numbers.
This is the Safe, Secure 360 podcast. The information provided in our podcasts is for general information uses only and is not intended as legal advice. The views and opinions expressed by the guests are their own. Always consult with a qualified professional before making safety and security decisions. For more information about this topic, check out our website at safesecure360.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Safe, Secure 360 podcast. I'm Robert Henry, and today we're talking about a real timely topic, post-election safety. What things can you do to enhance your safety, and what tips can you take from us?
My name's Daniel Ziegler, and I'll be asking a lot of questions today and hopefully learning something too. I have noticed personally that this election in particular feels more divided, and people on either side feel more adamant than I've ever seen in my life. How can I stay sane and calm and feel like everything's okay during this time personally while I'm seeing all of this divisiveness happen?
I think that's accurate. I think that we really are polarized in some ways by party or by person that you support, especially in the presidential election. I think that it was a very unique approach to the election from both sides. And I think that emotions and acts of violence certainly did occur. And I think that to see that happening at that level multiple times that we know of is very concerning. So I think there are some things that we can do as individuals to lighten our exposure to risk, and some things that we can do in our homes and at work to be able to lessen the impact of that polarizing conflict that may exist between either side. I don't think that either side in this election, whether you won or your candidate lost, I think both sides have a lot to learn about civil manners and about respecting the opinions of others. And certainly we can object to them, and certainly we can have the right to make our positions known. But I think that when violence and threats of violence begin to enter, that's when it's really a time for concern. So what we do can either heighten or reduce the risk of us being, or anyone being, a victim.
Especially with social media, your voice and your opinion can so quickly become very public when you may or may not have meant it to. You may have just meant to share with a few friends, and all of a sudden you're re-seen by all these people. What are some tips on using social media in this time and remaining safe and not a target of things, maybe?
That's a real good point. Social media really is your presence everywhere. And things that you say or posts that you make or replies or comments that you have may be viewed as, or may by their nature be alarming to others or threatening to others, or may ridicule others. And I think that when people do that, they don't really forward think what this post impact could have, that they open themselves up to potential conflicts with others, whether it be online or whether it be in person.
I've seen there is just a colloquial thing that I've seen is one young man has been posting, got very popular about posting something about the election, and people are at his house, knocking on his door. That is alarming to me. That really is scary stuff. So I think that what you're saying is right. It could affect your posting. Strong political views of either side can certainly incite somebody to come talk to you about it. And so people should, it seems like a good idea to consider what you're going to say before you get online and say it.
I think that's real good advice from a law enforcement perspective. I think that if someone comes to your home and is there to either support you or to detract from you, either way may have unpredictable outcomes. So I think that although I encourage people to exercise their ability to state their opinion, they have to do so responsibly, and they have to predict that sometimes it may be so polarizing that it may encourage or cause others to react or respond to that posting or that conversation or that photo or that video in a way that you may not expect. SAFESECURE 360. We are a security consulting group located in the Woodlands, Texas. We assist our multiple clients by reducing the risk, loss, and reputation impact. We also do full security assessments on their facilities, large churches, large private schools in Texas, and we want to help you. Take a look at our website, safesecure360.com.
So moving now into more the real world, or into the everyday life, what civil unrest sounds like something that's very far away from me. But there must be some warning signs that come before this. There's, the election results were just publicly announced, and then inauguration doesn't happen for a couple more months until January. So what kind of behaviors or trends should I be looking out for to stay safe and sort of prepare for what's coming? Is there anything that is alarming that I should be looking out for?
Certainly on both sides, there are people who are very happy and very upset. And I think that being aware of your surroundings when you're out in public, for sure. If you see a perhaps political protest going on, although you have the right to participate in that, my advice would be to view it perhaps from afar if you're interested in that, or perhaps take steps to distance yourself from the conflict that may occur if someone shows up who doesn't like what the other person's saying. So I think that being aware of those surroundings in a public setting and balancing your social media posts are two good real steps to take. I think that if someone knows your political affiliation, either you've told them or you wear a certain shirt that may have a symbol or a cap, or have a yard sign, or have videos perhaps that you've produced, or posts that you've written. I would limit sharing your current position. I know a lot of people on some social media platforms tag in and show where they are. I think that the less of that you do, perhaps the better. If someone wanted to find you for negative results, may be a good idea to do. I think as far as avoiding public conflicts, I think watching the local news may be a good source to say that there's a planned event or protest that's going to happen today at so-and-so time at a certain location, may guide you or influence your decision whether you would want to go there or not. Maybe traffic is your big concern. Maybe all those people together at one time in a emotionally charged environment
Certainly.
may be your concern. But I think that the local news can give you some ahead of time information that may discourage you from driving to a location or becoming involved in an area that could have conflict within it.
So generally paying attention to not only your surroundings when you're out, but maybe a bit of preparing before you go out to watch the news just to make sure there's not a rally or a protest either way that you don't necessarily want to be caught up in is a good way to plan your movements accordingly.
I agree, yes.
How do I talk to my family about these types of issues, and how do I prepare them for being how do I prepare them for being in a situation where they might come across somebody that wants to make a stand about their politics?
I think there's two conversations that you certainly can have. One is an adult-based one, and one is for children. And I think that the adult-based one is to agree within your family that there are opposing viewpoints and that we should respect them, even if we don't follow them, and that being respectful of someone's opinion and ability to talk about their position in public is a right that we have. You certainly don't have to be there or remain there if that starts, and if it starts to become a complex meeting or violent, for instance, you could certainly leave. But I think that having the conversation with your family adults is just that, that others that may disagree with our opinion or may agree with us have the right to make their feelings known in a public setting or in a private one. We have the right not to attend or to leave if it appears that it's deteriorating or de-escalating, it's escalating, and that we don't want to be at risk.
How would I let's say I was out, I see that somebody is talking, I want to hear what they have to say. How would I know if it was escalating or devolving, like you were just mentioning? What
I
would
think
look for?
looking around that meeting or group before you approach it is probably a good idea. Does the crowd appear to be still? Do they appear to be quiet? Do they appear to have large signs or banners? Have they lit something on fire? Or are they in some way visually showing aggression or conflict? And if so, that's a real good key not to approach. Is there a clear division line from us and them? Can you see that there are two opposing groups and that members of these groups are engaging in some type of visual conflict?
Right.
That's a real good sign and has the potential to escalate and involve other people. And before you know it, you could have a violent situation without unpredictable outcomes. So my advice would be to evaluate that before you come closer. And then always remember that if you have to leave, can you leave? Which way would you go? And how would you communicate that to the other adults to go? I think the children really are an extension of the adults, and they should be told to stay with us, stay close, pay attention to us, and then if the command or decision's given to leave, it needs to be done timely and quickly to be able to get away if you need to.
Who would I call to report something that makes me uncomfortable? It's a political thing. It's somebody Let's say I'm walking by a college campus and somebody's screaming, and I know they have the right to scream. I think they have the right to say what they want, but it makes me uncomfortable, and I don't know if it's illegal, but it's making me uncomfortable. How do I report that, and who do I talk to, and what do I do? What are the steps of that?
I think that certainly someone does have the right to say things as long as it's not alarming or harming to someone else or makes someone else react in a way that's inappropriate. If you, for instance, in a movie and you started screaming the movie theater is on fire and it's not on fire, well, that's inappropriate. It goes beyond the boundaries of speech, free speech. So I think that avoiding that area or leaving that setting is probably your best idea. Someone just yelling or someone just advocating for their position typically would not rise to the level of involving law enforcement. Certainly it could escalate to that point, but I don't think that just hearing someone expressing their opinion really is the level of a law enforcement response. Now, if other things start to occur, perhaps it could be. But my advice to you is leave the area and be safer as you do.
When I'm traveling, how do I prepare for traveling to different places, and are there spots to avoid during these times, or just kind of keep it as normal, just know that it's election time? What's the best family plan for me going from city to city, for instance?
I think it's important to, again, use social media and use live media, not only for where you're at, but the route that you're going to take. And then look at some posts or look at the current newspaper online or television station from that destination city and see what those news topics are. And if it, for instance, shows some type of protest activity that's turned violent, the police are involved, there's some type of injuries or damage to property, those would be very important indicators of areas to stay away from.
Sure.
So unless there's some real reason that you must go to that area specific of that city, I would certainly avoid them. But I think that your best source of information is going to be from reputable, if you can find a reputable news source and then use their information to guide your decision.
What other considerations should I take? We've talked about it's a bad idea to make yourself a target right now, to push somebody else's opinion because that causes a reaction from them. To attack someone's opinion or say things publicly that are going to hurt people and cause a reaction is a bad thing. What other behaviors should I pay attention to in myself during these times?
We certainly see that every day in driving. If you drive on a freeway or sometimes just a roadway, road rage can occur just by not using a turn signal or turning in front of someone or going too slow or going too fast triggers other people around you with unpredictable outcomes. So, and some of them can be very terrible. So I think that being aware of your responsible behavior and not inciting others or certainly engaging in conflict-driven speech probably is a good idea, but certainly that's your decision, what you do. My advice would be to evaluate your audience, evaluate your situation environmentally, and see what's happening around you and decide then what your input into that situation is, or decide if you even want to be there, and you may want to leave. But if you do remain, just know that certain unpredictable risks can occur that you may want to have a personal safety plan about.
Right. And a safety plan might be as simple as knowing which way you'd like to go out and maybe having two possible exits.
That's right. You know you came into this building or park or theater or shopping mall or a store a certain way. Are there other ways that you've seen that you could use as alternative exits if you couldn't use the primary exit? Let's say that the protest or conflict occurred outside of the store, for instance, and then it moves inside the store to the area that you entered and planned to leave from. That may no longer be a smart decision. You may want to consider alternative areas that you can leave from safely.
Yeah. So it sounds like some common sense is really helpful in times like these where people are upset about anything. A common sense approach would be don't further poke the bear. So one way to get a lot of attention that you may or may not want is to walk around pushing people into talking about politics. But a more reasonable common sense approach may be just to live your life more or less normally, but stay alert that some people have heightened emotions right now.
Yes, I certainly encourage you to be have feelings about your political party that you endorse and that you enjoy. However, I think a responsible approach to that that doesn't over broadcast those feelings, especially in a way that is framed in ridicule or making fun of the other party or lauding the success of your candidate or based in retribution, is probably a good idea. We're a long way today in middle of November until the inauguration in January, late January. So a lot of feelings can happen between now and then. And I think that after the election, perhaps also, there are risks that exist for one side or the other being angry or being inappropriately wired to cause problems for the other. So I think it's important that we, as Americans, certainly maintain our maturity and dignity during this time. Support your candidate, support your win, regret your loss, but do it in a professional and safe way, I think is the way to go.
I agree with all of that. That's part of the process, is that every time it's time to vote, somebody will win and somebody will lose, and we all are the Americans that are voting. So we can share this win and loss with our friends and those, but it just is a bad idea and is ominous when people start attacking each other for their feelings of win and loss. What are some resources that I can do as I'm feeling anxious about the election results or the people around me? What are some resources I could reach out to for help about that? What are ways that I could continue to feel calm and in control of my situation?
I think that it's very important for self-care and for taking care of yourself during times like this, especially so if you are very interested in this process and have been watching it very closely and are listening to sources that may polarize you even further. I think that some people certainly feel sad. Some people certainly feel euphoric or happy at the results. And I think taking a self-inventory of how you're feeling and taking care of yourself are very important steps from a mental health perspective. I think discussing how you're feeling with trusted friends or family members, or even seeking professional counseling if you feel that would benefit you during this time. I think that it's an individual decision to evaluate yourself and those feelings, and then to take steps to balance them out to where you're taking care of yourself. It's very important.
So what I hear is that the best thing to do for myself would be to take inventory of how I feel, to pay attention when I'm around people and see sort of if I can see if it's obvious how they feel, it may be time for me to back up a little bit.
Maybe so. I think that taking a self-inventory about how you're feeling, if you're depressed or if you're sad or if you are unsure or uncertain about things to come, or if you're euphoric and happy and glad about things to come, that you keep those feelings of euphoria and happiness in a moderate range, and that you not ridicule perhaps persons of the party that lost. I think that fundamentally we all, as Americans, have the choice to support whoever we want. And I think that there are winners and losers, but make sure you're not the loser in mental health awareness of yourself, because that has real effects. Mental health and mental illness is real. And if you feel like you're overwhelmed or overcome, or if you feel like you're experiencing that pressure and stress, talk to someone about it. Maybe limit your social media, political experiences. Maybe limit polarizing newscasts, and be able to feel better about yourself.
These news sources, like you're saying, and this social media, they're designed to hook your attention by providing one side or the other side very strongly, and they cause an emotional reaction whether you want them to or not. And I think your suggestion of, if you're feeling particularly heightened by this election, maybe a little bit less time spent looking into it is a good idea, just for a mental health standpoint. A little balance of, why don't I talk to my friends instead, would probably go a long way for that.
I think so. I think a very important word you said is balance. And I think balancing these concerns with your work life and your home life and your family life and your personal well-being is a great word. Balance. And when we become out of balance, then sometimes we need to reset and come back into balance. And I think by limiting those strong political pundits who are advocating for one side or the other may be a great idea.
Do you have a suggestion in your experience in working with mental health and working with criminals with mental health issues? Do you have any suggestions on how a person could find their own balance? Any general suggestions on centering oneself or remembering what's important?
I think in a self-evaluation of how you're feeling, I think feedback from your family, feedback from trusted friends, feedback from coworkers that you value their opinion may be a good inventory start. And I think that listening to what they say, especially if there's a common theme or you've heard the same or similar reports from others, that may be a good time for you to begin thinking about alternatives as far as calming down and coping with things that are going on. And again, I think that involving a professional mental health person may be a good idea.
Again, there's when with politics, it can become divisive, but people want to feel together. And so I hear you saying to, use your friends in a good way to communicate how you're feeling, kind of get a sense of, am I crazy right now? Or are you feeling this way too? Because sometimes you may think that you're off, but then your friend's saying, I feel the same way you do. And there's just that dissolves the tension that you were feeling before.
Yes, I agree. And, certainly feelings are very powerful and very important. But when feelings turn into actions, especially if they're negative actions or violent actions, that's certainly something you want to avoid before it gets there. So I think doing that self-evaluation, listening to others about your situation, it's a great start.
Do you have any other points you want to make about this in particular?
No, I think we've covered a lot of different angles on this, and I think that this political season will pass, and I think that we're going to be fine, and I hope that the listeners' takeaway from this will be to be kind to each other,
Yes.
and to also just limit polarizing conversations and opportunities.
Be kind to each other and themselves, and take you said over and over again, taking stock of where you're at is really, really important. And I think in times where you're getting told how to feel, that's really great.
Absolutely.
Great advice.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Robert, for your insight into this.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Well, thank you for listening. We could not do this show without you, the audience, and we're very grateful for you. To hear more about what we're talking about, go ahead and go over to our website, SAFESECURE360.com, or look for new episodes of our show. Feel free to like and subscribe, follow us, tell your friends about us. We're here to offer something to you, and we're so glad for your support in doing it. Thank you.
Safe, Secure 360 podcast. There's safety in numbers.